Hi everyone, welcome back to the INFJ Reads, Deep Reads for Deep Souls, where ancient wisdom, sacred stories, and soulful words meet. Today we're diving into Numbers chapter 16, and let me tell you, it's one of those chapters you don't hear preached from the pulpit too often. Because it gets pretty intense. Honestly, here's a disclaimer, it's a little gory. And we're going to meet some bold, rebellious characters, Korah, Dothan, and Abiram. So grab your Bible, or you could just listen, and let's go through this chapter together. I'll pause along the way to explain some things that I had to research that you might miss at first glance. Let's start reading Numbers chapter 16. Here is Numbers 16, Korah, Dothan, and Abiram. And I probably need to get my glasses on so I can read. Korah, son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and certain Reubenites, Dothan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, became insolent and rose up against Moses. So there's a note in my Bible with the word insolent, and it says, or Peleth, it means they took men. Let me make sure that is correct. Yeah. And so I'm not really sure what that means. You can interpret that yourself. Verse 2, and rose up against Moses. With them were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" There are a few notes that I have that I want to share with you. I am stopping there, as you can tell. So here is where Korah, along with Dothan, Abiram, and On, plus 250 leaders, basically tell Moses and Aaron, "Who do you think you are? We're holy too." So let's kind of think about this. Because this is one of the most rebellious acts against God's appointed leadership in the whole Bible, kind of think about, how would you react if you were Moses? Or how do you think God might react to this? So let me continue. This is verse 4. When Moses heard this, he fell face down. Okay, so I had to do some research on this because I thought it was because he was being facetious and he was going, "Oh," and falling down, making fun of them. I don't know. But it actually, when very spiritual, very God-centered leadership would fall face down, this is what it means. It wasn't just out of fear and sorrow. It was more of an act of humility. It was like an urgent intercession, like an urgent prayer. Like they fall on their knees and they pray immediately. And it's like total surrender before God. It's what true spiritual leaders do when faced with conflict. They go straight to the Lord in prayer, humbling themselves, I guess in the dust in this case, first before they react or have an answer. So I'm going to continue reading, starting with verse 5. Then he said to Korah and all his followers, "In the morning the Lord will show who belongs to him and who is holy, and he will have that person come near him. The man he chooses, he will cause to come near him. You, Korah, and all your followers are to do this. Take censers, and tomorrow put burning coals and incense in them before the Lord. The man the Lord chooses will be the one who is holy. You Levites have gone too far." I'm going to stop right there because I do have some notes. Because right here, Moses tells them to take censers. I had to Google censers because I was like, what are censers? I don't know what those are. Well, a censer is a small metal container used for burning incense as an offering to God. You'd put hot coals inside and sprinkle incense on top, and the smoke would rise, and it would be like a fragrant offering to God. And it was something only consecrated priests were supposed to do, not, anyone else. So for these men to take censers was a huge, dangerous act of presumption, like walking into the Holy of Holies without permission. And I am going to continue reading. I believe I am starting in verse 8. Moses also said to Korah, "Now listen, you Levites. Isn't it enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the Israelite community and brought you near himself to do the work of the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the community and minister to them? He has brought you and all your fellow Levites near himself, but now you are trying to get the priesthood too. It is against the Lord that you and all your followers have banded together. Who is Aaron that you should grumble against him?" So here we have grumbling again, complaining that we saw in Numbers 11. It seems like the Israelites did grumble quite a bit in the Old Testament. Here, Moses essentially says, isn't it enough that God gave you important roles? Now you want the priesthood too? Pride. That's a dangerous thing. So this chapter shows what happens when jealousy and entitlement go unchecked. So I'm going to continue reading verse 12. Then Moses summoned Dothan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, but they said, "We will not come. Isn't it enough that you have brought us up out of the land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness? And now you also want the Lord it over us? Moreover, you haven't brought us into the land flowing with milk and honey or given us an inheritance of the fields and the vineyards. Do you want to treat these men like slaves? Ooh, no, we will not come." Stomp, stomp. So they're throwing a temper tantrum here. For this next section, I'm just gonna summarize it for you. These are from verses 16 through 35. Only because I don't know. I just want to summarize it for you. So Moses tells everyone to gather at the tabernacle, at the entrance of the tabernacle, with their censers, and get this: God's glory appears. Okay. Yeah. Gasp. And Moses warns the people to step away from Korah, Dothan, and Abiram's tent. And here is where it gets a little gory. In a moment of divine judgment, the earth literally opens up and swallows them. Their families, their possessions, everything. The earth swallows them alive. This totally reminds me of Stranger Things season 4, the last episode. I don't know if you've seen it. Then fire comes out from the Lord and consumes like 250 men offering the incense. Gulp. Yeah, this is not Sunday school, reading material. I mean, I wouldn't think, not for children, because this is really intense. A lot of people get killed in this chapter. And it totally reminds me of Stranger Things. So I am going to continue reading the chapter, and I'm going to go to verse 36. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, to remove the censers from the charred remains and scatter the coals some distance away, for the censers are holy. The censers of the men who sinned at the cost of their lives. Hammer the censers into sheets to overlay the altar, for they were presented before the Lord and have become holy. Let them be a sign to the Israelites." So Eleazar, the priest, collected the bronze censers brought by those who had been burned to death, and he had them hammered out to overlay the altar, as the Lord directed him through Moses. This was to remind the Israelites that no one, except a descendant of Aaron, should come to burn incense before the Lord, or he would become like Korah and his followers. So afterward, God tells Moses to have the censers gathered because they were made holy by offerings. Even though man themselves were judged in a big way. They hammered the censers into covering the altar as a warning to future generations. And I'm going to read the remainder of the chapter. Verse 41. The next day, the whole Israelite community complained again, against Moses and Aaron. "You have killed the Lord's people," they said. Yeah. But when the assembly gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron and turned toward the tent of meeting, suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Then Moses and Aaron went to the front of the tent of meeting, and the Lord said to Moses, "Get away from the assembly so I can put an end to them at once." And they fell face down. They prayed. They went into urgent intercession. Then Moses said to Aaron, "Take your censer and put incense in it, along with burning coals from the altar, and hurry to the assembly to make atonement for them. Wrath has come out of the Lord. The plague has started." So Aaron did as Moses said and ran into the midst of the assembly. The plague had already started among the people, but Aaron offered the incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. Aaron makes atonement for all of these people, and everything stops. He stood I already read that. But 14,700 people died from the plague. Oh, that's so many people. In addition to those who had died because of Korah. Then Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance to the tent of meeting, for the plague had stopped. Okay, I have a note in my Bible. My Bible's telling me to look at a note. So in Hebrews text 16, chapter 16, verses 36 through 50 is numbered differently. In the Hebrew text, it's 17, verses 1 through 15. Okay, that's not a really big deal, but anyways, disregard. So what can we take away from this extremely intense, gory chapter? So the first thing I would say would be pride and rebellion against God's appointed order is dangerous. Number two, spiritual leadership is sacred, and approaching God casually or presumptuously has consequences. Yeah, no kidding. And when conflict or challenges come, true leaders fall face down in prayer first. So I guess if anything challenges, I think that's a good thing to do, is to go to the Lord first and pray. Even in the wildest, darkest chapters of Scripture, God's mercy and justice walk hand in hand. And hard. Now, some of you might be wondering why God is cruel in the Old Testament versus the New Testament. I mean, I guess there's more experiences in the Old Testament where God's wrath, comes down upon even his own people, as we see in Numbers 16. And I've heard that people have questioned, I can't, why does God do all of this stuff in the Old Testament? Because, it's really hard to read. And I understand that. It's hard for me to read. But I had a mentor or someone who helped with a Bible study explain this. And I thought it was a really good explanation. God is God, no matter what. He is very consistent. He's the same God today as he was in the Old Testament and New Testament. But he does give his judgment. He does give his wrath. And when people, and especially like in the Old Testament, like the Israelites and, others, during that time, have turned from him, or they're sinning against him, and they keep doing it over and over and over again. And they do this like continually for hundreds and hundreds of years. God's, he's going to, his wrath is going to come. Yeah. So we know that God gives his grace and his mercy. We experience that, over and over again. Even today, he shows it consistently in the Old Testament as well. it's just that I think our memory, like, we want to focus in on, what the intense, gory parts are, possibly. I don't really know. You can, comment below and make your, you can type out your own interpretations. So also, if you learned something new today, or if this chapter gave you, some type of feeling, um, drop a comment below. Tell me about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time as we continue through Numbers, where things get only wilder. Error. The next video will be about Aaron. Until next time, goodbye.